Oh, hey, Christina, how are you?
Hi, Igor. How are you?
Good. It's nice to see you. It's been a
Nice to
while.
see you. How are you? Everything okay?
Yeah, yeah, good. Well, thank you so much for joining me for
Of
this
course, yeah.
conversation. So, this is going to be your debut with the VSO, right?
Yeah.
And, well, why don't you tell our audience about yourself? Tell us about your background. And you know Maestro Salvador Brotons, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So tell us about your background and also how you know Maestro.
Okay. So, well, I play the harp. I started when I was 9 in Sevilla, in Seville. It's in the south of Spain. Um, I Many people ask me how I got to play the harp, if I really wanted to play the harp when I was a child or not. I really didn't know what a harp was when I was 9. My mother just wanted for me to study some music, or any other arts. She also asked in a dance academy because she could see some artistic qualities on
Mhm.
on myself when I was a child. So nobody in my family is a musician. So she went there to the conservatory in Seville. They told her that it was too late to apply for that year, but maybe they could make an exception for her and for
Mhm.
me. But with only in the case that I wanted to study harp. So, because my mother, of course, not being a musician, only knew about the piano, the flute, the guitar, only those instruments. So she said yes. I remember her coming back home and saying, "Okay, so you now, Christina, you are gonna play the harp. You are gonna learn how to play the harp." And I said, "Okay, what's a harp?" I thought the harp was the sitar of the Romans, a
Oh,
much smaller instrument. So until next week, when the lessons started, I thought that I was playing the sitar. And the first, I remember the first lesson in the conservatory when I saw the big harp, because it was a concert harp, like the same harp that you will be seeing today in the
mhm,
concert.
mhm.
It was the big harp, and I saw that for the first time, and I said, "Okay, this is a harp. This is much bigger than what I thought." But then I fall in love with the instrument, the sound, everything. I love the teacher, also, that's very important too. And she also encouraged me a lot to keep going, keep practicing and keep going with the instrument, because she could see also very good qualities on me. So she also encouraged my parents to even rent a harp first and then buy another one later, years later. But yeah, that's my beginning. Just to a little bit of my background, that I'm from Spain, I'm from Seville. Later on, I was studying in London, the Royal Academy, and I also was in Berlin, studying in the academy there, Staatskapelle. That's
Mhm.
the opera in Berlin, conducted by Daniel Barenboim.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I got that position to be in the academy for 2 years, so you get the chance also to play with the orchestra. So it was great for me. And I only spent at the end, I only spent there 6 months, because before ending my period there in Berlin, I got the position in the Symphony Orchestra of Valencia,
Oh.
back in Spain.
Mhm.
So I got that position. It was not tenured position, because it was like a subbing position for another harpist,
Mhm.
and it was only for 1 year. But the same, before the end of that year, I got another position now in the Opera House in Valencia, same town, because it was a new created orchestra that was
Mhm.
created by Maestro Lorin Macel and Maestro Subin Meta.
Wow.
So they created that big new orchestra with a new big building. Many people recognize the building because the architect was Calatrava.
Mhm.
Um, and it was a great orchestra, and I spent there more than a decade playing with the orchestra in Valencia, with
Mhm.
the Opera House. It was amazing. My years there, I also was teaching in the conservatory there in Valencia. But then I got married, and my husband plays the trombone. Maybe some of you know him because he played
Yeah,
with
of course.
the orchestra years ago. Um, My husband, at the same time, while I was in Valencia, he was also principal trombone in Barcelona, in the Opera House in Barcelona, and then in Munich, in Germany, Munich Philharmonic. So we were traveling a lot. You know, that had been like that for years, but the relationship was perfect because we handled it very well, and we also had a lot of free time, both of us. So we were all the time traveling Germany, Valencia, all the time. But then he met Gustavo Dudamel, and he told him that he had free vacant the principal trombone position in the orchestra in the LA field. It was free. It was empty, and so they had now the auditions. So he only asked him if he was interested in doing the auditions, and at first we were not, because we never thought of living in the States. But we said, why not? Why not? Why just take the chance and see how is everything? So he won the auditions, and we decided to come here because I also was doing more and more solo concerts. So I could also have more time to develop my career as I really wanted. After more than a decade, as I said, in Valencia, in the Opera House, I really wanted to play more and more chamber music concerts and solo concerts. And I barely had time with the opera schedule and the conservatory, because I was also teaching there. I barely had time. So it was a great opportunity for both of us. We arrived to Los Angeles in 2016. And so a couple of years later, also I got the position in the Hollywood Bowl Orchestra as principal harpist. So at the end, we really settled down in Los Angeles. We loved living here. We also play a lot of studio work. I play a lot of solo concerts, but I also have the time to play also with the LA Field and the Hollywood Bowl Orchestra, and also, as I said, studio recording for the music for very important movies or series. It's something different that we were not doing before. So we love our professional life here. It's like we can combine everything, and finally we are also together, living together. We had a baby 1 year ago, well, a little bit more than 1 year ago. So that's my life.
Well, that's exciting. So, are there any films that people would know? Any
Yeah,
film
of course.
that you recorded?
Very popular. One of the most popular was Avatar.
Avatar. Okay.
Avatar, yeah, the second one, which was released, I believe, 2 or 3 years ago. Yeah, I recorded that one. I also recorded the last movie of the Ghostbusters.
Okay.
I forgot to tell you my connection with Salvador Brotons,
Salvador, yeah, I was going to ask you.
our conductor here. So it was in our period of time when my husband, as I said, he was also playing trombone in the opera in Barcelona. So it was during that period of our time that I met Salvador, because I knew that he had written a piece for harp called Sutileza. That means something like, the translation would be something like subtle. And I knew this piece, and I wanted to really play this piece well. I was preparing that piece for a concert series in Spain, because I was living there in Barcelona and Valencia at the same time, but also a few months a year in Barcelona. I wanted to meet Salvador to maybe play the piece for him, and to see, I don't know, his opinion, or ask him about what he was thinking when he wrote the piece. It was a great opportunity that he lived. You don't have the opportunity every day to talk with the composer that you are. One of the composers of the music that you play, especially if he's living there. So we got in touch, because we also had if I remember okay, it was because we had a friend in common. So we got in touch with him, and I told him if he was interested in maybe listening to me, because I wanted to prepare that piece really, really well. And he of course agreed, and he came to our place to listen to it. And I remember he loved the piece, and he told me that first meeting, that that piece was written in the 80s. It was like he was really young when he wrote that piece, and in the future he would like to write something else for harp more mature for him.
Yeah, yeah.
So that was there. So years later, the funny thing is that during the pandemic, he finally had time. After playing for so many years this old piece, during the pandemic, he had more free time, and he wrote a harp sonata for me.
Oh, he did.
Yeah,
Oh my
finally, with
goodness.
3 harp movements. It's an amazing sonata, harp sonata. It's so well written for the instrument. And I played so often. I played most of my recital, maybe not the whole sonata, but maybe at least one of the movements at least. People love it. The audience really loved the piece because Maestro Broton is a great composer. So we also had the idea also of playing a concerto from many years ago, and he proposed me to play this concerto with the Vancouver Symphony.
Yeah.
And it's the Monsalvace concerto because I love this concerto. I have played it many times also.
Uh-huh.
But Monsalvace, Xavier Monsalvace, the composer of the concerto, he was his teacher.
That's what he told me. Yeah, he was his
Yeah,
teacher.
in
Yeah.
Barcelona, because Monsalvace at the end was also at the end of his life was also the teacher of the conservatory in Barcelona.
Yeah.
I believe Salvador studied there
Yeah.
for a few years. So yeah, it's at the end we close the circle in some way.
Well, that's he made an. Maybe you can play as an encore excerpt from Salvador's sonata. I
Sure,
don't know. I'm not
yeah.
saying anything.
Sure, yeah.
So let's talk for a little bit about the concerto, Monsalvatore. Tell us about the structure of the concerto, maybe a little bit about the history and just your take on the whole concerto, like movements and what's most exciting about it, a cadenza
Okay.
or movements.
So the whole concerto is divided in 3 movements. But after the second, there is a cadenza, harp cadenza, that is connecting the end of the second movement, the cadenza, and then the third movement. So I will say there are like 2 blocks: the first movement and the second block with everything else together. Um, it's very interesting because the concerto, and it's maybe the reason why I love it so much, is modern, of course, because it was written in 1975. But the writing for the harp is like very different. What people have, if people have listened to the harp some other time, this is something very different because you are gonna listen also very
Yeah.
different techniques, but also with a nice melody on the background. Especially seeing this concerto live, it's like a great experience. Everybody, also many people, when I played it before, the audience really love it too, because it's like a special harp concerto, and they discover the instrument at the end. They end up discovering the instrument. So the first movement is more modern, let's say, in some way, but with, let's say, classical techniques. So it's like an introduction. But then the second one develops with like so many crazy things doing in the harp, but in a very funny way, and with a question and answer with the orchestra, and percussion instruments also accompanying the harp, which is a very great combination. There are different techniques like playing with I have to say that we usually play with the fingertips on the harp. So in this case, we also play with the nails, like the guitar. We also play with I also need some extra devices. I also play with an old tuning key, which is made of metal. So with this metal, we pluck some strings, and the color of the sound is also very different. We also have effects with the pedals, because we have 7 pedals for the chromatics on the harp. So with this, we play some kind of glissandos with the pedals. It makes some kind of, we have a pitch on the notes, but at the same time we get some kind of noise. It's like disturbing noise. And it's very also exciting, I guess, to see, to hear, and also to see live how it is made. There are other effects like knocking, of course, on the sounding board, more classical effects, let's say, but in the harp they have a special resonance. I will say, yeah, that it's especially very interesting to see the second movement.
Mhm.
The third, now after that we have the cadenza. The harp cadenza is also like very crazy with harp things. And then we get to the third movement. And the third movement is based on a melody, popular melody, very popular from the South American countries. I don't know if many people, I don't know, if some of them are, familiar with that kind of music. There is a piece called Pájaro Campana, like the bell bird. It's very popular, played on the Paraguayan harp, which is not this concert harp. It's a much smaller harp, a folk harp that they use in these countries, especially in Paraguay, but there are also other countries in South America that they also use it. This piece is one of the most popular traditionally. So this third movement is based on that piece, and you can really recognize that melody in the orchestra and played in the harp, and the orchestra also, of course, in some way distortion, with special effects and with maybe crossing harmonies, and of course in a modern style, but you can really recognize that rhythm, special rhythm, and that melody from the bellbird in the third movement. Yeah, and if you don't know that piece, it's okay, because the piece is so it has a melody so simple and so that people really fall so easily, that it's something that, I don't know, in my opinion, everybody needs to love it.
Catchy. It's catchy, yeah.
Yeah,
And
it's catchy, so catchy.
in our hall, people are gonna have advantage of seeing you playing on the screens, on two screens. So they're going to see all the techniques that you're
Yeah, that's
describing
great. Yeah.
in details.
And in the third movement, I also need an extra. I will also play glissandos with the fingers, like classically we
Uh-huh.
do always with the fingertips, with the nail, as I said before, also using the nail, which is also a different kind of sound, but also with a metal rod, which in this case I usually use a spoon, a teaspoon.
Wow.
So with that, also the sound that you get with that, it's much louder than whatever you can hope in the harp, and also the color of the sound, of course, is different. So it's so funny to see also not playing this kind of music, but also seeing those effects on the harp.
Oh,
If they have
that's,
screens, it's something that they are gonna even enjoy more.
wow, that's so exciting. Well, you let me know if you need extra spoon. I might have it somewhere here.
If I forgot it, maybe we can get one from the hotel or something.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's fantastic. This is very exciting, and we can't wait to see you here. Is there anything else that you want to tell our audience?
Yes, enjoy. Yeah, it's gonna be. Don't expect to be like a classical concerto, like from the classical period or Baroque. It's like the opposite. You are gonna be there for a new concerto. Well, it's not so new, but it's still it's like new for some years in some way. But especially to discover the instrument, to discover the harp.